Hundreds of students come to the Hill for the first time as a freshman. Others leave the Hill braving for the future ahead. Some even come back, being able to recount what Cathedral was like when they were a student. On Through the Tin Can, we set out to find more about Cathedral's past through former students and current educators. So I have Miss White today on Through the Tin Can, a podcast about telling stories from past students and current teachers at Cathedral. So first of all, can you give a little introduction about yourself?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Miss White. I graduated in 2011 from Cathedral. I don't know, what else do you need to know about me? School, sports?
So you played girls lacrosse.
I played girls lacrosse, and I'm the head coach now.
Mm-hmm. And you ended up going to Wittenberg?
Mm-hmm. So after I graduated from Cathedral, I went to Wittenberg University. It's a small liberal arts D3 school in Ohio. It's a lot like DePauw. I compare it to that because a lot of people haven't heard of WIT, but a lot of people know about DePauw. So very similar schools. I played lacrosse there for all 4 years. I graduated there in 2015. And then I went and taught at Indianapolis Metropolitan High School for 3 years in downtown inner city Indianapolis. And then I came back to Cathedral. And I think we're in year 6 of teaching here.
So 6 years teaching here.
Or maybe 5 years teaching here, 6 years coaching. That's probably right, yeah.
So back in 2011, going to a little more sports,
Mm-hmm.
that was like the middle of like the 5P or something like that with football, right?
Yeah, football was a big deal back in the 2010s.
So was it just football? Because right now we have our huge basketball program. So what was it like sports-wise, 2007, 2011?
Excellent question. Sports have always been really big here. We've have a very long running history, tradition of excellence in athletics. Volleyball was really elite at that point, so that was a really intense sport. They were really successful. Football was obviously in their 5P. I think every year I graduated high school, we won state in football, so that was just kind of a given to me. Basketball was maybe not as good as it is now, but it was a highly respected sport. And then girls lacrosse, we were, still kind of new, still kind of growing and developing. So we were maybe not as strong, but we were gearing up to where we kind of are now. Yeah.
And has any of the curriculum kind of changed since then? Do you find yourself teaching stuff that you never had to do in algebra or geometry?
Good question. I was in mostly honors, AP, IB classes, and I teach academic now, so I'm not quite sure how the curriculum has changed. One major difference is we don't have IB anymore, but we do have a lot more AP credits and offerings than we used to have, so I think that's kind of a cool thing that we're growing in that area. I think what's so funny about math is you do it, but then you move on, and then maybe you forget the really specific stuff that happens. We're teaching we're learning about triangles and proportions and geometry right now, and truly don't remember if we learned that, but I'm sure we did. It's one of those things. I know the big scale stuff, and I don't think in that term the curriculum has really changed. But it's funny, as a teacher, you're a lot more in the nitty gritty than you were as a student.
Yeah, and for reference, I had her last year, and I cannot remember a lot of the stuff we did.
Yeah, so I taught you that, but you probably couldn't have told me that I taught you that, right?
Yeah, probably not.
So I think that's just how certain subjects go, and the big things you remember. You'll remember what books you read in English, or maybe a big project you did in social studies, but maybe you can't remember the individual facts that you've worked on. So, yeah. And I just think that's the difference between being a student and an educator.
Are there any educators where you're kind of like Miss Ford, you're kind of oh hey Miss Ford, but now you guys are like colleagues? Is there any strange interactions that kind of come from that?
I think it's so interesting being a student and then now being a peer with these teachers. So yes, Mrs. Ford, I never actually had Mrs. Ford for class, so maybe it would be a different story if I had her for class. But I remember I saw her in the hallways, I knew who she was. So coming back to school, you have a high level of respect for these teachers who were here when you were here. Mr. Fogel was here when I was here. Dr. Brooks was here when I was here, and I had I had her when she was Mrs. Brooks. So that's kind of a fun thing. It is kind of weird, but you kind of get over it really quick. You become colleagues and peers very fast, because it's just how it goes. And there's a lot of kids, or I guess adults now, we're not kids, who were students here and who now work here. And it's kind of fun to kind of grow and develop that. Like, I was just talking to Mr. Jamel in the teacher's lounge, and like we were both students here at the same time, and now we both work here. So it's just kind of a fun thing that you can reminisce back on, but like you kind of step into the role that we're in now.
Yeah. Was Mr. Jamel a weird kid?
I didn't know him that well to decide if he was a weird kid or not. Honestly, he just was enough younger than me that he wasn't really in my realm of
I
knowledge.
just feel like he's a weird kid. That's
You'll have to ask him.
I can tell whenever I talk to him. So were there any like huge events because obviously I think girls won national championship in volleyball. Was it guys?
I don't know if they won it while I was here. Maybe. The girls volleyball was always so good that they might have won national championship, but I felt like they were always right there if they didn't win. So I can't quote that directly or not.
So were there any like huge events that kind of captured your experience? Because obviously there was like a lot going on. I mean, it was the like mid 2000s. So like, can you remember any like flash in the pan moments?
Flash in the pan moments. I mean, I think like the state football games in Lucas Oil every year was like a huge deal. Like everybody went to those. You got dressed up. We had different like tailgate shirts that we would wear. Neon and graffiti was really big in like the 2010s. So like I have an Irish tailgate shirt that's like in bright neon colors. I'm trying to think if there were other like big events. Do you mean like just at school or do you mean like nationally?
I mean, I guess it could be like national that kind of tied into the school. Because obviously it had like that bit of a recession, I think, at that time.
Yeah.
So was Cathedral kind of changed by that, or did they kind of remain steady?
I think that I was in school mostly after that recession happened, so I couldn't really speak to that. Like I don't feel like I had enough knowledge of it during the time. Also, like when you're in high school, you're like 14, 15, you don't really always know what's going on with that. I do remember one time we had what we called ice apocalypse. I think I was a senior, and we had this giant ice storm, and we were out of school for 3 days. And back in my day, we never had snow days. So it was insane that we were not only like had a snow day, but we had 3 in a row because like you literally could not drive your car. Like my car was parked outside, there was like ice frozen to it. And so like there were days that like we'd be like trekking up the hill and it would be like terrible weather and they're like, we're just going to school because like if you had a snow day, you didn't get any credit for that day. So I think it's awesome. Like we've already taken a snow day, but since we could call it an e-learning day, we can count it as a day of school. Since we couldn't do that back then, they were a lot stricter about us coming to school. And so the fact that we had 3 days off in a row was just like an insane thought.
So obviously, huge pandemic. And then we had the whole new building. But in other ways, how has Cathedral changed? Because obviously it's like the e-learning policy. But are there any huge ways, like now I think teachers are probably more lax? At least that's what you complained about during the class.
Yes, I've complained about how much more relaxed we are about the uniform, which I think is fine. I think that every rule that you have, there needs to be a pro and a con. So if we decide, like when I went to school, you wore sneakers with socks. So you had to have like socks on with whatever shoes you were wearing. You had to have your shirt tucked in. If you wore an undershirt under your polo, it had to be white. It couldn't be colored. And then we had the 3 uniform sweatshirts. We had no quarter zips, we had no nothing, and then on Fridays you could wear your spirit wear shirt, obviously. But I remember having friends that would get detentions for just having their shirt untucked, or not wearing socks, or wearing the wrong color undershirt. And the fact that we don't do that, when I first got back here, I was like, that is insane, that's just like what we used to do. But I also believe if we have a rule, it should have a purpose. So if that no longer serves a purpose, I think that's okay. No reason to have it. Another thing when I went to school here is the teachers were not like departmentalized in different hallways. So like you would go, like I had a economics class in Loretto. I'd have a math class in, not just B basement, but like on the regular religion floor. Like, you know what I mean? Like there were classrooms in all sorts of different places. So I thought it was kind of cool when I came back and you were in your department, because I enjoy just like walking across the hall or like next door and checking in with the teacher on like, hey, what did you do with this? How are you doing that? What are your thoughts on how I teach this subject? It's a lot easier to be just in that same hallway than having to go like across campus to find people.
Yeah. So do you have any friends that are kind of like, they kind of look at you and they're like, you went back there like you have a twin, right? Like
I have a twin sister.
does she kind of go like you really just went back there to teach?
None of my close friends act that way, but we had a reunion a few years ago, and people were like, "Oh, so like, what are you doing?" And I'm like, "This is my job. This is where I work. Welcome to my home." And they're like, "Oh, okay, crazy." But I mean, high school's a hard time, but I love teaching high schoolers, and I love being part of like kind of that journey for you guys, and I just find it fun. Like I don't know what I would do if I didn't work with kids. Like you guys just bring so much like different energy and joy to my life, and sometimes it's dramatic, but sometimes it's fun.
A little bit more dramatic, but
a lot of drama, but that's okay. But it's way more interesting than my friends who only work with adults. Like they'll get bored about something, or like we'll talk about things, and they'll be like, "Oh, well, like we just send emails," and I was like, "Well, my kids did blah 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 blah," and I have a lot more like fun stories. So. I love teaching high school, and being in the city when I was not teaching at Cathedral, I was still coming back to coach. So the fact that I can be here and coach and teach, do the things I love, and then I think it helps me develop a better relationship with all the students because I see you guys in so many different aspects of your lives. I have girls I have in the classroom and I coach on the field. Even like you I had in the classroom, I go and watch like the choir performances, I see all those different things. So yeah, sometimes it's funny to be back, but like when I wanted to be a high school teacher, like I kind of pictured this. So it's like not surprising to be here.
Yeah.
I don't really want to be anywhere else.
So on that sports aspect, do you like how highly would you encourage like other students just like kind of get involved at Cathedral? Like if you're just about to be a freshman, and you don't have an athletic bone in your body, kind of like me.
Yeah.
Do you think sports are kind of the way to go, like as well as like with extracurriculars, or?
I think anything extracurricular is important. I think that you want to feel connected to other students and to this place, and if you just come here and go to class, there's no connection. I think being part of a team is like really special, and maybe that's just because I've grown up playing all sorts of different sports, and I kind of focused in on lacrosse as I got to high school. But like, there's just something special about like being part of a team, having each other's backs, working towards a common goal that like you don't get from other things. There's so much pride and so much just like your self-worth you can kind of get by finding something that you're excited about, that you want to excel at, and then finding a group of people that also want to do that same thing with you.
Mm-hmm. And then on that note, because I kind of forgot that, what extracurriculars did you do at Cathedral when you were a student? Did you do anything, like, were you in choir?
I was in choir for 4 years. What else did I do? Choir and lacrosse were kind of the biggest things I did. They were a big kind of push, lots of commitment. We did not have a show choir when I was here, so I just did the normal concert choir. But we had a lot of concerts, we had a lot of competitions. I was involved in, I'm sure, a few clubs here and there. I'm trying to remember what names. We didn't have, like, there's only so much time during the day, so I don't remember being involved in too many, but I think on top of just like doing school and doing that as well as I could, sports and then choir, I think that was kind of like maxed out for me. Sometimes I even tell kids like, yes, I want you to get involved, but let's not get overly involved, because at a certain point we only have so many hours in the day, and you don't want to do a bunch of things halfway. You want to do a couple things as well as possible. So I think I was like lightly involved in a few clubs, but for the most part I tried to focus on school, choir, lacrosse, and call it a day.
What was choir like? Because now, if you guys don't know, we won, I think, nationals last year.
Yeah.
Pretty decent, even though we don't have Sir John anymore. But so how was choir like for you?
Choir was very different. We had a different director. Her name was Mrs. Holloway, and she was awesome. She did a great job. I think Mrs. Bender brings like a different energy and so much like enthusiasm and a lot of like, I love her skill of the show choir and bringing, she's involved choir in the school in a way that I don't think I've seen it before. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Were you guys doing masses?
We did masses, and we would sing at masses, but it wasn't the same thing. Like, we often just sang, a gather hymnal song instead of like they do their different performance songs, or they'll learn a piece for mass and sing it then. I think that she has also done a good job incorporating so many different like instruments. So like when we sang in choir, it was mostly like piano and voice. And like I think that Mrs. Holloway did a great job. She picked a lot of great arrangements. She was really pushed us to do our best, and I think that we performed very well. But I love kind of the extra stuff that Marion gets to bring in. Mrs. Bender can push these kids in a different way, and it's like I love seeing the show choir performances. I love when concert choir sings their piece at Mass. It's just I think that's such a fun thing, and I feel like it's like everybody sees choir a little bit more. I think it was a little bit more hidden when I went here.
Yeah, because now I guess you could say the focus is, like, there's still a focus on sports. Obviously, we're great at sports. But, like, now speech and debate is in there, like, all these great clubs.
Yeah.
And not even clubs, like, activities.
Like, I know we had speech and debate. My sister was in it, but, like, I don't remember, like, anything else about it. And so I love that, like, we're so, like, public and, like, recognizing of the kids who do speech and debate and do really well in that. Our theater has always been excellent. So like we had an awesome theater director when I went here, and we would always have like this like wonderful spring musical at the end of the in the spring. And I was never involved in theater, but I had a lot of friends who like took a lot of deep pride, and we had a really excellent theater program then. And it's been cool to see it still kind of progress through, even though we've gone through a few different directors over the year.
Yeah. Was flex still a thing?
We did not have flex.
Okay.
We had every class period every day for 47 minutes or something.
That sounds absolutely terrible.
Yeah, I kind of liked it though. Like I liked always knowing that you saw everybody. When I came back and we were on a rotating schedule and I was like, wait a second, I see who, what day, when, how long, that was very confusing to me. Now that we've done it for enough times, I mean, this is our third schedule, but now that we have rotated enough times, I understand like the plus of it. And I know this might be a hot take, but I do love the 4-day rotation because I like seeing everybody as many times as possible. So like ideally I'd love to see everybody once a day, like every day, but 3 times of 4 days is pretty good for me too.
I think it's time to bring back Mission Monday.
Oh my God.
How was like e-learning for you?
We did not e-learn. We were not, so we did not do iPads. We did not.
No iPads.
No. I don't know if iPads, I mean, we could Google it, but I don't know if iPads were like commonplace back in the 2010s. My sister graduated in 2016, and she had an iPad for all 4 years. And I think maybe class of 2015 was the first class who all 4 years had an iPad. So it was maybe just a few years after me they started the one-to-one. But like we didn't have it. Like we would come to the library to like email teachers. Like we didn't like, I knew like maybe 5 kids who had an iPhone back in that time.
You guys look at dinosaurs too.
Yeah, the dinosaurs walked by outside.
How has the whole student life kind of vibe also changed? Because I heard seniors talking like it used to be all this and that, and so how like for you has it changed from being like coming back like what 5 or so years, 6 years after from that time?
So I feel like student life was pretty similar when I first came back. I think COVID's been like the biggest change of student life just because we kind of were on like a bit of a hiatus and now we're trying to like pick everything back up. But we had a lot of events kind of encouraging student life. We had the Coffee House Jam when I went here. I believe we still do that.
Yeah, shameless plug. That is going to be back this
shameless
year.
plug. Was not intended to plug, but that was something I remember we did. There were other things around campus. I feel like everybody was like very involved in at least like one thing. So like I feel like maybe now there's more kids who are in several sports or in sport and theater or sport and choir. I feel like a lot more kids were kind of singly focused on like basketball or football or this. So I think that maybe is a big change. I like that more kids are involved in more things. I like that you have the possibility. I felt like sometimes like we were so elite in sports that it felt kind of like you don't even try because you're not going to make it. Yeah. So I think we're getting back to it. I really do think COVID hit it hard. But other than that, I think student life has always been like pretty vibrant here.
And then just wrapping it up. So obviously the theme of Cathedral is greatness is calling. Mm-hmm. So how do you think greatness has kind of called you in Cathedral and what you've done?
Great question. I do think that if I had not gone to Cathedral, I would not be here today. obviously for a couple reasons. Why would I come back to a school if I never graduated from here?
Fair point.
I got very interested and involved in lacrosse here at Cathedral, which made me choose to play in college, which then encouraged me and made me want to continue having that sport in my life, which is why I coach. If I did not come to Cathedral, I don't know if I would have played. So I grew up on the west side of town. I went to St. Michael the Archangel, which is right next to Ritter. Now I don't think I would have gone to Ritter, but like if I had, they don't have lacrosse, they don't have a lot of high level classes. I wouldn't have gotten college credits to go to Wittenberg, to get scholarships, those kind of things. So Cathedral has kind of built me up for success. When I was my last year at the Met, when I was kind of unhappy and like looking for changes, Mrs. Ford actually came to me after a lacrosse game. So she like walked across the field after our game, and she was like, hey, like I just think that you would be awesome here. We have a position opening. And I never would have thought about coming back this soon. I always thought of this as like a longer term goal. Like I was like, oh, when I'm in my 40s or 50s, I'll come back and teach at Cathedral. I didn't think I'd be in my 20s coming back to Cathedral. But she like encouraged me, was really just like very positive about it, and was like, we really want you, we'd love to have you back. And that kind of got my brain turning. And it feels right to be at a place that has kind of set me up for success, made me the woman I am today, given me a lot of the qualities and values that I have and that I cherish, and that I hope that I pass and instill on to you guys as students. If nothing else, I want to just be like a positive influence, somebody that you guys enjoy seeing, enjoy having in class, enjoy talking to, learn at least something from.
Which I did.
And maybe it's not math, maybe it's just be a kind human, or there's certain things that I hope that you guys get from me, that I got from the teachers that I had here at Cathedral.
All right. Thank you so much, and I do think you've accomplished all that. And because I do now know to turn in my homework on time.
Yeah.
And not try and blame it on you.
Yes.
As some people did, and that was kind of terrifying to watch. And yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah,
Girls
of course.
Lacrosse schedule, I don't think is posted, or at least
It's not posted right now, but it will be soon. Starting up in a few weeks.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
This way.
Yeah, bye. I would not be here today. Obviously for a couple reasons. Why would I come back to a school if I never graduated from here?
Fair point.
I got very interested and involved in lacrosse here at Cathedral, which made me choose to play in college, which then encouraged me and made me want to continue having that sport in my life, which is why I coach.